is going to be based on Measure F. It's a two-part series. Tonight's speakers will be Hanford Police Department representatives from the association and the representatives from the Hanford Fire Department. They're going to speak to us about Measure F. At the conclusion of their talks, we're going to be able to ask questions and so that we can educate ourselves and make an informed decision when it comes time to make our votes for the ballot. So if you guys can come up, we'll have you introduce yourselves. Again, my name is Larry Faria. I'm president of the 1776 Sons of Liberty National Chapter. Go ahead.
My name is Gabriel Martinez. I am the vice president of the Hanford Fire Fighters Local 3898. Jared Bracey, another member of our union board. Chief Steve Pendergrass, Justin Dolan, Brett McCreary, and Ryan Tomey from HPOA. Good evening. Thank you for your invitation to join you all here this evening. Although we are thankful for the opportunity to speak, this definitely is not an ideal situation for us to be meeting for the first time. Again, like I stated, my name is Gabriel Martinez. I've been with the Hanford Fire Department nearly 18 years now, including volunteer time. I'm currently the vice president of our Hanford Fire Fighters Local 3898, and I've been a lifelong resident of Kings County. I have many friends that have worked for Kings County Fire Department, and I have many friends that currently work for Kings County Fire Department. I truly want the best for the members of the Kings County Fire Department as well as the citizens of Kings County. Myself, I currently live in the county at this time. My goal and our goal as a union, the local fire department union, is to bring information to you all and try to help answer some questions that may be out there. We know there's a lot of questions, but our goal is to answer questions factually, unemotionally, and to the best of our ability. I'm not speaking for the city of Hanford, and I'm not speaking for the fire chief. We have Chief Pendergrass here this evening, so if we have any questions, he said that he is more than willing to answer those questions for you. Kind of setting the table a little bit in regards to this Measure F. From the outset, it was never our intention to publicly oppose this measure being brought forth. Unfortunately, it was brought to our attention by citizens of Hanford that the information being disseminated in many occasions was not accurate. So at this point, we as a union, receiving many questions and concerns by citizens, had to make a public statement in regards to that information. Our membership had heard that, going back to the beginning of this measure, our membership had heard that Kings County Fire Department union was seeking a tax measure, and we were approached in regards to this measure. This timeline began on the 16th of November in 2021. We held our first meeting. Kings County Union approached our union and requested a meeting, so we held our first meeting on that day. In this meeting, the tax measure was presented to us by the county e-board. No hard numbers were given at that time in regards to the revenue that would be brought in by that tax, but due to or based upon numbers that were previously somewhat accurate for Measure K, which was a measure that was proposed some years back, the assumption or the idea, the thought was that the number would be between $8 and $12 million annually for this measure. These projections, again, were based on Measure K numbers, which was some years prior to that. Some key points that we discussed in our meeting that night were when we were asked if we would join the tax measure. We were asked to join the tax measure, and our questions were, is this an all public safety measure? Is there a sunset clause on this measure? What is the amount this tax will generate? And have you spoken to all the bargaining units in the county, and including the city HPOA? So back to question number or point number one of that question, in regards to it being an all public safety tax, we were told no, that it is not an all public safety tax. We were also told that no, that there is no sunset clause on this tax. And again, the number was unsure of what the revenue would be. And in regards to the county union speaking to other bargaining units, they had not yet at that time spoke to any other bargaining units. So at that point we stated that we had been approached, the local 3898, by some of our citizens in regards to a citizens initiative tax that would be held in the city. So this tax would have been a public safety tax for the police department as well as the fire department. We were approached about this tax, but at the time we were looking into it, we let the union, county union know that there was legislation that had been brought forward to us and by a consulting company, and the information that was given to us was essentially saying, hey, you guys can go forward with this, but there's a possibility that the legislation being brought forward in November, and will be on November's ballot, could negate and void this measure that you're going forward with. So at that point in time, we decided not to go forward with it. If I remember correctly, it was shortly after our first meeting that we decided not to go forward with it. We did let the county union know that we were possibly seeking a tax measure in the city, and doing so would have prevented us from joining the union on this measure if we were going to do our own measure. So we let them know, and we left there that night with the understanding that there's a possibility of a citizens initiative tax in the city, and that we would not join their tax due to the fact that it was not an all public safety measure. So in regards to the law enforcement, why they weren't on there, and again, when they speak to you, they'll share their side. But for us, it was the lack of bringing law enforcement on was our number one priority or concern, and why we did not want to join. The Citizens Initiative tax in the city was not a for sure thing. So even when we found the information that was given to us by the consulting company, and we decided not to pursue the Citizens Initiative in the city, we still did not join the county in their measure. And again, going back to our number one reason was that it was not an all-encompassing public safety measure. And we articulated that in the first meeting that night, that we would have to have an all public safety measure in order for us to go in on that. The advice that was given to the county union was to stay away from doing an all public safety measure, and I don't want to speak to who exactly gave that advice, but that was part of the reason why they decided not to go with an all public safety measure, including law enforcement. So once we publicly took this, I apologize, let me backtrack a little bit. So the measure was brought forward. They were going out collecting signatures. In order for them to get the measure put onto the ballot, they needed a certain number of signatures. Those signatures were being collected in the city of Hanford. I can't speak to where else they were collecting signatures, but we know that there was a vast majority of the signatures collected in the city of Hanford, which for us was fine. They cover the city, the county. We're in the county of Kings. Our issue came when citizens began to question us as to what the funding would be going to. We were called on multiple occasions by citizens with questions and concerns. We would run calls in the public and be asked if the monies that were going to be acquired through this measure would go to the Hanford Fire Department for personnel, for staffing, for apparatus and new stations, and we told them no, that it wasn't. So at that point, we had concern with the information that was being disseminated by our county brothers, and that is when we took a public stance, and we put out that this does not support the city of Hanford. Now, what was being said is that it does support the city of Hanford based on Station 4 potentially acquiring another fire personnel, Station 5, and upgrading their equipment and apparatus. So that is the way that it was being, their understanding of what was being said. But when our citizens are asking of us where the money's going, and we have to tell them that this isn't money's coming directly to the city of Hanford. We received at that point a call from the county union. Obviously, they were not happy with us publicly speaking out on this. And at that point, we had our second meeting with the county board, the county union board. At that time, we expressed our displeasure in the way that the information was being disseminated to the citizens of the city of Hanford. They expressed their displeasure with us publicly opposing after their understanding was that we would not publicly oppose them. Initially, yes, that is correct, we were not going to publicly oppose, we just were not going to publicly support either. But when our citizens were being, in our opinion, misled by some of the information, we had to speak to the facts. So our whole stance as Local 3898 is only speaking to the facts of the measure. And the facts of the measure are the monies collected by this measure are not going to directly influence or impact the city of Hanford public safety sectors, which is fire and police. Secondly, there is no sunset clause. So with there being no sunset clause on this measure, if this measure passes, it'll be from here until either eternity or until somebody feels necessary to put an opposition measure on the ballot. So we all know that unfortunately we are in the Central Valley primarily we're all strapped for funds in regards to staffing, in regards to equipment, apparatus, stations, and all that. We're all in the same boat, so we totally understand. But what this would prevent would be from any future measures going forward that could positively impact all public safety. And that's our main goal as the Local 3898, is to allow for all public safety to be represented fairly on this measure. Again, the legislation may void this measure, and that is why we didn't go forward with the measure in the city ourselves. And at the end of the day, this is not us as a local crying about not getting a share of the money. We had that opportunity, and it's not us regretting the opportunity or not pursuing that opportunity. But in our opinion, it's not fiscally responsible for our citizens, the citizens of Hanford, and the amount of money that will be going out of the city of Hanford, paid by the citizens that live in the city of Hanford, outside of the city. We do respect and we appreciate our brothers and sisters of Kings County Fire Department, and we did not ever want it to go down this road. Unfortunately, we are here. So the only thing moving forward from here is trying to inform the public on the facts of the matter, and the citizens will make their vote, and at that point we'll have to move forward from there. But our goal is to present to you facts, and so that's a little bit of the backstory of how we got to this point with this measure. I know there are many questions. We've seen it on Facebook, many questions that have been asked. So at this point, I would like to give the opportunity for questions. Brent, did you want to speak on anything?
Mike?
I think Justin was going to cover some of those bullet points on the handout he gave.
Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
My name's Justin Dolan. I'm a member of the Hanford Police Officers Association. First off, thank you 1776 East Liberty for inviting us today. We really appreciate it. And like Gabe said, we're just here to give some facts in regards to our local union, Hanford Police Officers Association. That's what incorporates all the police officers in the city of Hanford. We also didn't know about this until about November. Many of us were confronted at local establishments, and the information we were provided, it was a tax for public safety. When we started questioning it, it became that it was not a tax for public safety, but it was more so a tax for the Kings County Fire Department. We passed out a little bit of stuff earlier, but some of the main things is this will increase your sales tax across the entire county by 0.5%. Measure F will cause consumers just in the city of Hanford to pay approximately $8.7 million in additional sales tax each year. That's not to include sales tax revenue coming in from the cities of Lemoore, Corcoran, Avenel, and everywhere else. That total number is going to lie somewhere around $12 million countywide total. Measure F funding, including the approximately 8.7 million just for the city of Hanford, in extra sales tax paid by Hanford consumers, will all go to the Kings County Fire Department. No Measure F money will be allocated to the city of Hanford or any other city within this county. No Measure F money will be allotted to the Hanford Fire Department. No Measure F money will be allocated to the Hanford Police Department or to the Kings County Sheriff's Department. Measure F has no sunset clause, so the only way it will ever be taken off is by an initiative to take it off through ballot measure. Measure F taxes paid by Hanford consumers each year will exceed the current budget of the Hanford Fire Department. The current budget of the Hanford Fire Department lies just under $7 million, correct, Chief?
Correct.
Measure F will not improve emergency police responses in the city of Hanford at all. And Measure F is not supported by the Hanford Police or Fire Department unions for these reasons. Some quick numbers that I was just sent a short time ago is that with our current budgets, the Hanford Police Department current budget, the average call for service costs the taxpayer in the city of Hanford about $188. For the Hanford Fire Department budget, the call for service costs the citizen about $859 per call for service. With this measure alone, just in the city of Hanford, that $8.7 million, that will cost over $34,000 for each call for service the Kings County Fire Department assists the Hanford Police Department with. Those are assists, and that's only about $250 per year, correct, Chief?
Right.
They are not primary, their primary responsibility is not the city of Hanford, city of Lemoore. Their primary responsibility is the county of Kings. Okay? They only assist in the city of Hanford. It almost boils down to who here lives within an incorporated city? Incorporated, so Corcoran, Lemoore, Avenel, Hanford. Okay, who lives in the county? Okay, this will only affect the response for county residents, not for city residents of any city within this county. This would almost be like the Hanford Police Department or the Hanford Police Officers Association going to the city of Lemoore and saying, we want to tax your consumers, all your residents that shop in the city of Lemoore, and only them, but we're only going to assist on some things. That's not right. And that's the stance that we've taken on this.
So Steve Pendergrass, Hanford Fire Chief. So let's back all the way up to May of 2021. So I approached the city manager and I said, hey, I want to look into a safety tax for, at the time it was whatever we could get done. And I was told that we shot down that measure because of the 2/3 rule. And so I brought up the Supreme Court decision on the 50+1 vote. So that's what this tax measure is a 50+1. It's not a 2/3 vote. So it requires only 50+1 to pass because it's a citizen initiative. The minute I got involved, the city of Hanford would no longer be eligible for a 50+1. It would become a 2/3 vote. And so I said, well, okay, let's go 2/3 vote. I think the public supports its public safety enough to where we can get something like that passed. So our city manager, Mario, says, okay, show me your comprehensive spending plan. Ooh, show me your community risk assessment. Ooh, I didn't have either one of those. This is what that looks like. It's done now. We did a community risk assessment. We did a comprehensive spending plan. And I know that to meet everything that's in this book is $4.6 million a year. That brings four-person staffed engine companies, that makes 6 complete four-person staffed engine companies plus command staff plus community risk reduction staff at $4.6 million. I don't need to come in and say, I need a 0.5 cent sales tax. We would need to accomplish this $4.6 million. We talk about the federal government just throwing money at a situation trying to solve a problem. $8.7 million would really do me a lot of good, but what would I do with the rest of it? It would go away. There's no trigger point for you to reduce that. That's what needs to be built into that. I was talking with somebody earlier tonight about a retention issue. We just don't pay enough. The county is right. They did, and this is the proposal right here, or this is Measure F, and I can answer from what I've read of this Measure F, and I've had some discussions with city officials regarding this. They are not going to receive raises out of this. So that's not going to help them increase their retention. There's a maintenance of effort clause built into this, which means Corcoran thinking that this is going to pay their $1 million bill, it doesn't exist. The council or the county still is responsible to maintain the current staffing. If they get a raise, the county has to pay that raise. That does not come out of Measure F funds. The maintenance of effort means that everything that the county is currently paying for, they have to pay for it. What's not being said is they come in and they provide mutual aid. We got Costco because of the support that we get from Kings County. And the fire service as a whole relies on the mutual aid and automatic aid and the call when needed system, so we get reimbursed for call volumes and stuff like that. We got Costco because we were able to utilize Station 4 in the ladder truck that's assigned there. Something that's not being shared with the public is Station 4 is actively being moved toward Corcoran to accommodate the high-speed rail. So it's being moved out of position to assist Hanford. The ladder truck that's currently staffed at Station 4 was purchased by Tachi. Tachi wants it back. So it's moving to Station 7, which is currently in the city limits of Lemoore, but is also moving on to Tachi land. So the two largest cities that are affected by this tax measure are losing the apparatus that comes in to support us on there within our 8-minute response zone. So it's not a matter of they don't come and assist. And the 250 number, that was the number that they threw out, and I'm not going to argue it. It's probably fairly accurate. Where they come in and physically assist us in calls is roughly about 32 times a year for the working incident, and then they run a bunch of calls while we're on our calls. We're a fairly busy department. But by moving those stations further out of play, we're not going to be calling them as much as we were. We've already changed dispatch systems. We've seen a 13% reduction in call volume. We've seen it's about an 8% reduction in the stacked calls, and that's where county has come in to help us. It is probably the most heartbreaking thing I've ever done to not support another fire department. I come from a county agency that was suffering just as bad as Kings County is. But like I was telling some other folks, my daughter gets off the bus every day, and I have to make sure somebody's there. She's 10 years old, to make sure that she gets home safely. And they said, well, increasing law enforcement wouldn't help your daughter, and I disagree with that. Yes, the judge, or not the state laws are kicking them out, but if there's an officer there to arrest them every hour, they're going to go to another city. So I personally can't support something that doesn't support the law enforcement side, because it supports all of us. That's the personal decision on that. I am more than welcome to answer any questions on our comprehensive spending plan. I know Kings County did a comprehensive spending plan in 2015. It should be updated. The numbers that are in here to say 60% goes to personnel, at some point you're still going to have to address what that trigger point is to where you've reached enough. Is it 5.0 staffing? Is it, we use it 5.0, 3.0, 2.0 staffing as the number to trigger it. That's 5 people on an engine, 4 people on an engine. The national or industry standards and best practices, 4 people on an engine, or 4 people on a truck. It's one firefighter per 1,000 people, 1 fire station per 10,000 people. That's the goal that all fire departments are seeking to get to. I did a white paper on the Central Valley fire statistics. Kings County's short. I mean, there's no question, they're short. We're 0.7 firefighters per 1,000 people. We're 1 fire station per roughly 20-ish thousand folks. So we're all in the same boat on here, and that was why I personally had to come out against this measure. Nothing against Kings County. I want nothing but the best for them, and but it's got it. I truly believe in my heart this is an all or nothing situation. We're not going to be able to come back later under these circumstances. There's a lot of people on Facebook who came out kind of attacking the situations. Why don't we come together with another measure? There's nothing I would rather see is this fail and us all come together immediately and do something together. And if that means because we've made people mad, they gotta come in and punch me in the jaw, and then we shake hands and move forward, totally good with it. But I think that's the path to move, to successfully moving forward. So.
Go ahead, can I add something real quick? Some information that, for the Measure F, if you read your ballot stuff of what they're gonna use the money for. It's for newer equipment, some of their equipment's old, better training, more firemen, more stations and so forth. The County of Kings got over $29 million of ARPA funds, which is COVID relief funds, from the federal government. City of Hanford got a little over $13 million. That's what that money's for. You can use that money for those types of things, for better equipment, to hire personnel, okay? You can buy a lot of fire engines with $29 million, right? So every city got some type of ARPA funds or COVID relief funds out of that.
All right, we're going to take questions, but before we take questions, I just want to make clear that Sons of Liberty 1776 is not for Measure F, it's not against Measure F. We are here to provide a platform so that we can inform the public of what exactly is in the measure. So again, this is a two-part series. Next week, Kings County Fire will have a platform and they can tell us the pluses and why they think that it should pass. And I'll tell you, I've had candid conversations with Kings County Fire, and there's some really good arguments as to why it could pass or should pass. So I don't want this to be one-sided. This week they present, next week the other side presents. So keep an open mind until you hear both sides, and I want to make sure that that opportunity happens. We're not picking sides. These guys came first. That's just the way it came. But I hope that everybody makes it next week, and if you're watching the live stream, you'll definitely watch both live streams so that you can make an informed decision as voters. Now, my first question is, was the original proposal a 0.5% tax when they came to Hanford Fire to split that 0.5%? Was it always a 0.5%?
So in regards to the percentage, it was 0.5%. The way it was going to be split was not. It was just the very foundation of the sales measure, or tax measure. So there wasn't like, hey, Hanford Fire is going to get X amount of dollars and Kings County is going to get X amount of dollars. It was 0.5% though.
Okay, so initially there was going to be two stakeholders at 0.5%, but now we have one stakeholder and it's still at 0.5%. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And then just to piggyback on Justin, I'm curious what a fire truck costs, because if it didn't cost $29 million, I'm curious of what your average trucks the newest trucks that we have, what do they cost?
We just spent one at $850,000.
$850,000. Okay, that gives me an idea. Questions?
And a ladder truck is about 1.4 million.
1.4.
So the 850,000 is the fire engine without the ladder on top, and the 1.5 million is the ladder on top.
The big one.
So okay. All right, so two different styles of trucks. All right, if you have questions, make sure you speak on the mic, so we'll pass the mic around, but since we're also recording, we want to make sure you're on the mic.
Of the $29 million that you said the Kings County got with DARPA funds, how much did the Kings County Fire Department get out of that?
That's countywide. So the County of Kings got $29 million.
Right, but how much of the fire department get from that? The Kings County Fire Department?
I don't know if they've split that up yet. That would be up to the Board of Supervisors and the CAO to decide who gets what money and how they're going to divvy it out between all the county departments.
That's a great question to clarify. The Kings County, its fire itself didn't get the $29 million, the whole county, right?
Correct.
All right, good question.
Just like the $13 million that the city got, that's $13 million for the entire city of Hanford, not for one specific department. That'll be up to city council, city manager to decide where that money is spent over the next couple of years.
So you are saying if this bill passes, that the city of Hanford is not going to get any of that money. You guys are not. It's only going to be the county.
Correct.
County Fire.
Just county fire. Just
So-
county fire department by itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Bob?
Yes, it says here that Hanford will pay, will generate $8.7 million. total figure that would be generated by this tax increase for the county of Kings?
So, that would be approximately $12 million, give or take.
$12 million.
Yeah, the conservative estimate, roughly 2/3 of the sales tax revenues that come from the county of Kings comes from the city of Hanford.
Yeah,
So
okay.
using that conservative estimate of roughly $8.7 million, it is probably conservative going to be about, probably about $12 million. But everybody's sales tax revenue is up, so.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Is there any supplanting language in the bill?
Honestly, I don't know.
Because that's critical, because if there's so if there's not supplanting language, then the county could offset their fire department fund with these measures and just add, and then use it in another
sorry.
department, so.
So I misunderstood. Yes, that's maintenance of effort. So they cannot use that money for anything that they've currently got in place. Everything they would be using it for is all for new.
So then if they had a 15 million, I think it's about 14 or 15 million this year, with this measure, they would automatically be funded 23.7 million the following year and every year thereafter.
At least, yeah. Yes.
Wow. Roughly.
As long as sales tax revenues stay about the same.
And I do agree with y'all, it's time that we try to bring back like Measure K. That almost passed, and I'll point out, it overwhelmingly passed in the cities of Hanford and Lemoore. It was the county areas that created that shared safety tax measure that would have benefited every agency in Kings County.
And if you remove me from the equation, it's just these folks and the 47, then you only need the 50+1, and it would easily pass.
Real quick, I'm sorry, Justin, Chief, can you say that again? I don't know if that answers my question, but my question is if Hanford PD and Kings County were in it wouldn't be, we couldn't do a 50+1?
No, if I get involved in the writing of it, if the city of Hanford or Kings County gets involved, then it's no longer a citizen initiative.
I see.
And now it's a measure.
Now, and so if they would have done a citizen initiative with the PD, County SO, you guys, and Kings County, would it have been a 50+1?
As long as government officials weren't involved in the write of it. The work is done. This work needed to be done anyway. This is all Freedom of Information Act stuff. So you can now use the information that we used to establish a community risk assessment and what our comprehensive spending plan would be. I believe PD is just about done with theirs, to where you can actually see how much is truly needed, and then you can build it based on that. But yeah, as long as we weren't involved in the write-up or the proposals or any of that stuff on there, then it still can go citizen initiative, and it would only need the 50+1.
Did not having those documents prepared preclude you from including the department in that measure at the time the measure was brought to you?
It was never brought to me, so they didn't know that it was missing. I'm assuming you guys didn't know it was missing. When I went to the city manager with it, I didn't have those documents, and he refused for me to go before the public and ask for any funds until we could prove what we've done with the funds we've got, and then establish what a true need is.
So just to clarify, Larry, this was, it is a 50+1, and it was citizens initiative, so we did it. It wasn't us going to the chief to ask him. It wasn't based on this fact finding that they did.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Travis, you got a question?
I was just saying, will the unions supply or purchase signs that say no on F to go against this measure? Because I see a lot of yes on Fs out there. What is your strategy moving forward now that you're out in the open?
So we do have signs, a limited number of signs purchased in opposition to F, and we're trying to strategically place those as well as social media, large social media presence. So that's kind of what we're doing right now.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned sign. That's kind of how we put this together. As a friend of mine asked me if he could put a Measure F sign out. I said, well, I don't know enough about it. Tell me about it. And I said, well, now I want to know what the other side is. To this date, I don't have a sign out yet.
Would it be possible to purchase a no on Measure F sign if we so wanted one?
Yes, we have them available. You wouldn't need to purchase them, but we have them available.
We purchased about 20 signs, and they're 3x3 banners.
4x4.
4x4 banners that we purchased. For
Sorry, I'm the Hanford Police Chief Partner Sever. I had another engagement that was already predetermined, so I just finished and rushed over here. So I don't think I broke too many laws.
We can get started now.
We're sorry once out of our
So do you have to city yard signs? I think that's what she's asking.
Not yours. Well, oh, I'm sorry, you were asking about yard signs? Again, we're trying to give them out to people that want them, but as far as funding go, we're pretty limited on what we're spending on it, so. But we can.
People would buy them from you if you made them.
Okay.
That's what she's trying to say.
Yeah. We had about $1,000 that we rustled up last week between the two unions, and we were able to purchase signs within that week. The 4x4s that we purchased about 15 to 20 of them. They cost about $65 a piece, I think it was, plus stakes to put them up. But if we do get a lot of support, we will definitely make an order for yard signs to be able to maybe sell them whatever the cost is on it. We're not trying to make any money off this whatsoever. We just want people to be well informed as far as what this money is going to and what it's not going to.
When you guys speak, can you just speak into the mic? So it'll pick up on the live stream.
Or you can get it. A couple quick questions. I want to ask if the reason, well, not the reason, the only reason why the city opposed the county was because they didn't offer or join by the other public safety, by the police department?
So initially, our declination of joining their tax measure was due to them not wanting to add law enforcement to the measure. And we stated clearly from day one that the only way that we would join them in a measure is if they added law enforcement. So we never publicly opposed them until the information that was being given to our citizens in the city of Hanford, whether it was on purpose or not on purpose, was quite misleading. And it wasn't until that point that we publicly opposed. Our plan was never to publicly oppose until that point. Until we asked that they would stop with the misrepresentation, and at that point it didn't. So we had no choice but to publicly oppose to, in our opinion, get the facts out there of what it was.
So, and from the Hanford Police Officers Association,
Come up to the mic.
sorry, my bad. From the Hanford Police Officers Association, we adamantly oppose it. For one thing, is because it doesn't affect anything in the city, and we don't want our tax money going somewhere else that it's not affecting the citizens of Hanford. If we want to do a public safety tax, we are all for it, 100% for the city of Hanford, police and fire, because God knows we need it, okay? By raising hands, how many people think that there's like 10 officers on the street right now? Our minimum staffing is 5 right now. It's 5 plus a supervisor, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And that just went up. It was 4. And we did not get any additional staffing to increase our staffing levels. The officers recognized the need, and so we went to 5, and what that's gonna end up doing is costing us overtime, and it's gonna cost the officers time off. That's how important it was to them. Because now, we typically will have 7 officers assigned to a shift, but once you figure in vacations, time off, sick leave, it drops down. So if we ever drop to 5, then we have to, or down to 4, now it results in overtime for us to call somebody else in.
Now, on the backside of that, did you ask the county why they did not want to include the HPA?
We did ask them in the very first meeting, and again, they were advised by an entity not to include law enforcement due to the lack of trust and backing of law enforcement. Again, this entity is from a big city, and we try to inform them that you live in a mostly conservative area that does back law enforcement. We were never going to go on with that law enforcement regardless, but that was their reasoning.
I got someone in the back, but while I'm walking, do you guys know what the Kings County Sheriff's Association, what side they're on?
So I did have a conversation today, and I prefer not to put that out publicly. I would say to reach out to him and allow him to make a statement on that.
Okay, and so just to be clear, I was asking about the association, not the sheriff himself, but I totally
Right,
respect.
yes, the president of the Deputy Sheriff's Association.
Very good. Ed?
I was wondering whether your low number on the officers out in the field right now, that had anything to do when they started hollering about defund the police?
He asked if it had anything to do with our numbers about the defund the police. That has hurt our academy a lot, and also it has, and as we try to hire additional officers, I think it has impacted it. It's been a little bit difficult for us to find good qualified candidates than it has been in the past. However, we benefit in this area in that we feel very supported by our community, and so we never, you know, as long as we looked local, we always felt really good about the position we were in. If we started looking at the national stuff, then we started feeling bad, if that makes sense. But locally, we feel a lot of support. In fact, I would say I think I felt more support, you know, during that time than since 9/11. And I say that because, like, I think people were trying to kill us with diabetes. They'd bring us donuts every morning, and they were constantly dropping things off. So that they were, maybe our community was playing the long game with us.
If this measure passes, what would be the likelihood of a future measure for Hanford PD and Hanford Fire passing?
Yeah, and then that's one of our concerns as well. There's really a limited bite at that apple. It's a very difficult thing for people to increase their tax rate anyways. And we've tried, I think we tried it with Measure S before, we tried it with Measure K, which Measure K was a specific task, a tax required to spend it specifically, so it required that 2/3 vote, and it actually passed in Hanford. And so the community is obviously super supportive. It failed in the county, and it failed in Corcoran, which dragged the numbers down. And so that's just, you know, once it passes, to try to go back to the community to do something that would actually be meaningful and impactful to the citizens of Hanford, it's just going to be a really tough sell. And so, I mean, if we do something, we really want it to be very impactful to Hanford as well. And to me, I don't know what they went over, but it's just, it's a difficult thing when they're responsible, the Kings County Fire Department, for less than 5% of the calls that our fire department responds out to. But they're requesting money that if you gave it to me today, it's the same amount as my budget is right now. I have 94 employees, and I have 75 vehicles, and that is my entire budget for the year. I could have a department of 188 people with the amount of money that they're asking. And did you go over like the numbers I gave you? In 3 calls for service, we could have another fireman. That's not a value to the citizens of Hanford. I have trouble thinking what they can possibly do with that amount of funds. But one thing is the government's great at is spending your money.
Yeah.
So if you give us enough money, I'll spend it. Give me $12 million a year, I'll spend it. Yeah, it's going to be, we're going to have the most incredible police department lying in gold you ever saw. But I don't see how they're going to spend that amount of money. It's crazy. They have a $15 million budget right now, and their budget's going to go to $27 million a year. I'm not even sure. I think our budget for the entire city of Hanford is just over 30.
Right.
That's insane. Yeah, and then of course it's permanent. So for us to if it passes, then we have to do another measure to get it off. And so, but one thing we have hated through this whole process is we love the county fire guys. Don't get me wrong. We support them. I appreciate everything that they do. I love it when I see them in the city. And if they ever need anything, regardless of this measure, we will go out there and help them do whatever we can. And the roughest part for us is we have to go in and campaign against another public safety agency, which we just don't like to do.
Can we talk about how they're their own fire district and how they can tax themselves?
It's a cheap question. So I've tried to find all the research on when Kings County became a fire district. But as a district, you technically have your own taxing system. So the Board of Supervisors is the board for the fire district. So they could go to their citizens and say, hey, we want to increase your funds. I was actually talking to Supervisor Valley this weekend about that, and he just doesn't feel like he would get the support from the other 4 Board of Supervisor members to bring that up. that still is, that is an option that they have that no other municipal or no other non-district fire department has. Now, because of the way they were written, their district rules are, they probably already capped out, they probably already maxed out the amount that they're allowed to go after for the district. Most departments have a fire fund. The fire fund for most departments funds about 60% of the department. That's their tax dollars that goes into what's called the fire fund. Kings County locks their fire department into the fire fund. Like when I worked for Kern County, you know, the 60% came out of the fire fund and that paid for that. But the general fund offset that to pay for the rest of the 40%. The goal being, yeah, it'd be great if you can get everything into the fire fund, but you're not going to solve your problems. This is where the Board of Supervisors, and again, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but it's not our responsibility to try to fund their department or tell them how to fund it. Chief Lynch is an amazing chief, great leader. In fact, Josh Cunningham is their assistant chief. They're sharp. They're trying to figure this stuff out. Their equipment replacement reserve fund, if that's an issue, the Board of Supervisors needs to address that internally. Tachi's building them a $21 million training facility. This measure goes toward building training centers. I don't know how many more training centers you would need if you have a $21 million training facility. But again, that goes back to what Parker was saying. Where are you going to start spending all this money at? There's no trigger points to slow it down. There's just continue adding on to it.
And remember, the measure that we did for the entire county,
The Measure K was also a half-cent sales tax. And that was, how many years ago was Measure K? 7 years ago. I believe at that time, it was going to bring into all of our agencies in the county, it was right around $6 million. And now, just 6 years later, it's double that amount, $12 million.
Was Measure K a 50+1 measure also?
It was a 2/3, and that's what made it very difficult. And it passed in Hanford, Lemoore, and it failed in the county, Corcoran, I believe, Avenel.
Do you know the numbers, would it have made a 50+1 vote?
Oh yeah, it was yeah, by far.
So your contention is that you guys would move forward with all public safety at 50+1, it probably would have passed?
I think it would have, yes. It was, I believe it was still above 60% that it passed.
I thought it was like 60% or so.
Yeah, it was awesome. Even though we failed, I loved the measure because it just showed you how much support we have. To get anything close to a 2/3 vote from the general public is awesome. So even though it failed and we were like, so close, we were like, man, it's great that our community supports us like that. So it was actually so good. Yeah, and that was during, pretty difficult times.
So the 50+1 ruling is a Supreme Court ruling that occurred, I believe, in 2018. So that wasn't even an option then. So the citizen initiative was ruled on by the Supreme Court, and that's what established that ability.
Okay, very good information. Can you tell me, does the county fire charge you for calls service in the city limits?
They do not.
Okay. Is that something that they could do?
We could, it's just not done in a mutual or automatic aid system. So it's not, when two jurisdictions, joint jurisdictions, or touching jurisdictions work together like that, you usually don't. You could do what's called a CWN. That program is in place through the CFAA. So like when Kings County goes out, they have $1.5 million in their budget for going out to assist other agencies. Last year, we made $300,000 for us going out and assisting state and federal governments. So that ability is there to bill us for service. But it's just not something that's done because we would send all of our resources to them. We send our ladder truck to Corcoran. So it's not like we would walk away from any chance to help each other out.
Remember, we go to the county, they come into the city. It's a mutual agreement. So
we're providing a resource to them, they are providing a resource to us. So why doesn't the tax funding, shouldn't it go the exact same way to build up both departments, to build up the entire county, not just one entity? They responded to slightly more. The number came from, I got the number from the county fire chief. He told me it was 250 calls. I do our dispatch center. We assisted them in just under 200. So basically for 50 calls of service, it's going to cost the city of Hanford $8.7 million. That's just not, it's not a value for our citizens. It's not something that I can say that's worthwhile. And they help us out. I mean, at that point, dissolve our fire department, which I don't want to. and put them into the county, but then they're going to charge us another $7 million, and now the cost to the citizens is $15 million. It just doesn't. It just in my head, I can't make it make sense.
And we understand that they shop in Hanford, that it's their tax dollars that are coming into Hanford as well. We're not trying to dilute that by any means. That's the whole purpose here is facts. And so that's probably their number one argument is their citizens come in to shop in Hanford, that they come in to assist us. We're just saying it's not, the value isn't there for the store owners who are paying city taxes, for the wear and tear on our roads, if there was an incident that occurred, we would be the ones
And even then, even if their citizens are coming here and shopping, they're still not going to get.
I'll just hang out.
Even if their citizens come here and shop and provide those tax dollars, they're still not going to get a response from the county fire department. They only respond in less than 5% of our calls. So even if they are shopping here, if they're in a traffic accident, more than likely, 95% of the time, they are not responding into the city to assist us.
Does anybody know, does the city make money when the county firefighters go out like on these long fires that, no?
We only make money when we send people out. And we get, the way that we bill for service, and everybody bills for service like this, is we send an engine out with 3 firefighters on it, or 4 firefighters, depending on the resource. They pay us the overtime rate for that firefighter. That way it covers the backfill, plus a 10% administrative fee, plus the vehicle.
Very good. Any further questions? Go ahead, Bob. I'll get you in the front there. Go ahead, Gabe. Give him the mic. Hold on a second, Bob.
Okay, so basically this bill is, what's been included for this thing is actually fake. It's not representing you guys. It's not a real bill. It's a sort of a shadow saying, those guys are gonna get the money, you guys aren't gonna get nothing. Right? Because I admire you guys. You guys are, I know, union. I'm union also. We're in the shop steward. But as far as doing seeing the outstanding thing of what's going on, you guys are sort of going against the grain of what the state wants to do. So you guys are sort of shadow boxing, or these guys are shadow. We're fighting against that because next week these guys come in, they're going to give us the cream of whatever they're offering. And public, what sounds good is going to sound good, just like the train. We got the train, right? Train. So as far as the train is concerned, as far as your guys' budget is concerned, it doesn't affect you guys at all.
So the measure is very real. It's happening. It's out there. It's very real. Just the portions that we're bringing up in regards to where that money goes is a shell game, and that's all we're bringing to the attention. It's very real. It's happening.
Fake news.
Let's allow both sides of the conversation to make a presentation before we conclude what's what. I think that's the fair thing to do.
This money, assuming this measure passed, it would be the tax money would go into the general fund, and it would be up to the board of supervisors to dictate how the money is being spent. Is that correct?
No.
No, it's a specific.
So they would set up a board, Fire and Emergency Services Board, for this specific measure. It's going to be made up of 4 citizens, an accountant, and 2 members of Kings County Fire Department. So that they will make sure that they're following the rules of the way it's outlined in the bill, or in the measure.
All right, any more questions from the audience?
No. Thank you.
You guys want to do some kind of closing statement there before we, Chief, you missed it.
It's a fire bill. I'll let the fire chief talk.
Just from, once again, from Vice President of our Local 3898, I want to make sure that I relay that this is not a personal attack against our brothers and sisters of the Kings County Fire Department. We have the utmost respect for them, and it's not going to change anything. And for me, at least personally, when we respond to calls together, it pains me to have to oppose something that they're bringing forward, and I 100% understand the need for additional staffing, equipment, and stations. But with that being said, once again, reiterating the stance of our Local 3898, it's just not fiscally responsible, and not only as a union representative for our fire department, but we've sworn an oath to protect our citizens in the city of Hanford, and we feel that it behooves us to take that stance, and it's our responsibility to ensure that our citizens are informed, and so that you all are able to make the best decision when you cast your vote. So again, we thank you for having us this evening, and anytime we're on, you can reach out to us. We're more than willing to answer any questions at any time. Again, factually, we're trying to take emotion out of it because it's a very emotional deal. So, thank you.
I put it out on Facebook. If anybody's got any questions, please. We don't want any of the bashing because on either side. Kings County is an excellent fire department. They are understaffed. There's no question about that. We're just saying there's a better way to do it than this, and we would like for us to be able to come together afterward to do that better way. But you're more than welcome to come by my office. I can show you. I mean, it's all public information. I've got the measure here that if anybody wants to look at it, this is my markup copy, but if we can answer questions afterward. And thank you again for allowing us the time to come and speak before you.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming out. I appreciate that somebody reached out to me to come out and speak. If you guys aren't familiar, this is our platform. Let's make sure that people are informed about what they're voting on and not just vote by name or by, hey, my buddy says that's a good thing to vote for. We want to inform the public any way we can. We appreciate you guys letting us record it and coming out here and speaking frankly. I appreciate it. If you guys ever need to reach out to us to put the word out on anything, feel free. We're here we're kind of public service also, all right, in a different fashion. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we're going to turn the live stream off.